Okay, so another thing that was mentioned during this meeting was a UFO that was spotted accelerating at supersonic speeds. So David Fravor, a former Navy commander, said that he and 3 other military pilots spotted a white tic-tac-shaped object in 2004, hovering just below their jets in the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
As he descended to inspect the sighting, he claimed that the identified aircraft, which he said bore no visible rotors, wings, or exhaust, began to ascend and approach his fighter jet.
Right.
He then said that it vanished, only to reappear a few seconds later, 60 miles away.
Right.
He told the committee that the technology that he and his team encountered defies any kind of logical explanation. He said the technology that we face is far superior to anything that we had, and there's nothing that we could do about it. Nothing.
Well, but see, that's not true, because he, as a jet pilot, is not going to be read into the state-of-the-art technology at the Lockheed Skunk Works or at Raytheon. So I've spoken to Mr. Fravor, and he certainly is accurate in what he described. There are sensors and videotape of the object, but that white tic-tac object was actually first recorded in 1967 over Pennsylvania. And we have a new top secret witness that saw it being offloaded off of a C-130 transport vehicle during the first Gulf War in an area near the Azores. And that is a man-made one. That is most likely out of the Lockheed Skunk Works. So unfortunately, a lot of these objects that people are encountering, which are very dangerous in how they move, are actually human in their construction. Now, that is a much, much bigger secret than the fact that there are extraterrestrial vehicles out there. Because if that were to be acknowledged, the very first thing anyone with any sense is going to ask is, how are we building these? When that gets answered, it'll get answered. And when it gets answered, it's the end of oil, gas, coal, nuclear power, public utilities, and surface roads. Why? Because the technology, this is why we put out this film, The Lost Century, and how to reclaim it. There's a century of technologies that have been sequestered, and the damage that we're seeing to the biosphere and the world poverty that has accelerated over the last 100 years is in large part because these sort of amazing sciences and technologies have been kept secret, and ruthlessly so. I mean, I personally know people who have been murdered trying to bring some of these technologies out that would take us off oil. And I'm not talking a fake Tesla car. I mean, the ones that you buy now. A real Tesla would never have to be plugged into a coal-fired power grid. A real Tesla would be pulling energy out of the fabric of the space around it, where there's an embedded level of energy called the zero-point energy field, which literally the amount of space inside a coffee mug has enough potential energy at that 0-point level literally to boil off all the oceans of the world. It's an enormous amount of power. Nikola Tesla called it the infinite energy field. But that was quantified, by the way, by Professor Casimir, first postulated in the 30s, but proven in physics journals in the 1950s. So unfortunately, if you're at MIT or Harvard or anywhere else studying physics and electromagnetic engineering, you're not going to be exposed to this. This is not in the textbooks. It's been very highly sequestered and classified, but it's the solution to poverty, global warming, all kinds of issues. And so, I think that this is, people ask, why would anyone keep this secret? Well, I'm telling you why. We're talking what? $1,000 trillion in assets in oil and coal and utilities and whatnot that would be redundant, unnecessary. Now, that's not good if you own an oil field. It's very good if you're a human living on planet Earth. So I think for that to come out, but I think this is the real debate. I think we need to move very quickly away from, these sort of ephemeral sightings, which we have something like 300,000 accounts of these sort of sightings. We have 3,500 aircraft pilot encounters like Mr. Fravor described. And those have been in reporting systems since the 40s and 50s. So that is old territory that they're covering. We really need to start getting to the brass tacks here, because right now what's going on is all going along the surface of observed phenomena. There's a great deal more to this, and we need to catch up very quickly with this. And that's why we're offering the entire disclosure project, intelligence archive, to the government, and a redacted version of it we're going to try to make available to you and the general public and the media in the next 6 to 12 months, where everything will be available through like a Wikipedia for all things UAP and UFO, including all the black site locations and documents. We have thousands of documents, government, and thousands of pages of whistleblower testimony.
But to be fair, we've always seen technologies get introduced that eradicated billion-dollar industries. I mean, like electric cars are essentially destroying gas stations right now. I've always said, when I got my first Tesla 7 years ago, I said, okay, in the foreseeable future, you will barely see conventional gas stations anymore because this is such a better technology. I mean, in Hollywood, you're seeing AI kind of mess with the livelihood of writers. It's starting to create its own kind of scripts and everything else like that. That's natural.
Right.
And in general, if the net result in society is an improvement, why hold back a technology that will improve all of society if a couple of industries fall by the wayside? I mean, at one point there were more horses than cars in America.
Here's the flaw.
Right? And now there's barely any horses.
No, but this is the flaw in your argument. There is not a few industries. It's the pivotal lifeblood of the industrial world today, which is the energy sector, that would have to be completely retooled. And we're not talking a few billion. We're talking over $1,000 trillion. So the macroeconomics of this and are way beyond, a Tesla car, and way beyond a digital innovation. And this is why it has been kept so secret, because now there is one part of this technology that should remain secret. And I want to be very clear on this. The aspect of it that generates energy that would run your car or house, great, that should be brought forward. That part of it that gives you basically lift and flight at speeds that are beyond imagination, which we do have, those should be kept classified, because that's obviously a missile and weapon delivery system. And I don't think you want every terrorist in the world having access to that, where in 2 or 3 seconds they could launch something from Mogadishu over New York and detonate it. So there are valid, serious national security concerns regarding the propulsion or space transfer. Like when he reported that object that was moved so quickly, it was 60 miles away. Yes. So that technology, having studied extraterrestrial technologies that we've reverse engineered for 80 years, since the early to mid 40s, that has resulted in some significant developments. And the problem is, some of those developments need to be disclosed. Some of them need to be disclosed later, after the world figures out how to handle it so it's not another weapon of mass destruction, right? So, I mean, this is a mature conversation that has not been joined yet, because people are still scratching their heads, what's a UAP? So, we're always being thrown back to kindergarten, when in reality, there were hearings in the Congress in the 60s and 70s. There were organizations with whistleblowers and pilot cases better, actually, than what the one Mr. Fravor was involved in back in the 50s and 60s. I have them in our archive.